This video is brought to you by Surfshark. Stick around to hear more about the special offer they're providing to the entire upper echelon community. Political division is a consistent and growing problem. Not just in America, but also globally, the issue of politics often creates conflict, disagreement, and distrust. Agencies, ideologies, candidates, and more often become a focal point of argumentation, social media debates, voices raised around the holiday meal table, even, and bickering within online communities, especially. It's become normalized. But today, I want to take a very big step backwards and focus on the broader concept of politics with no emphasis on any one particular side. Who are the people involved? Why are they involved? And using a trifecta of scientific studies with relevant examples, I want to make the case that modern politics itself is a mental disease. Probably the most common piece of feedback that I ever get on this channel is actually a question. People ask me, well, what can I do about it? And if you're talking about the world of dystopian technology, the answer is typically nothing. If, for example, you plug your phone into your car and all of your messages get instantly scanned, you can either buy a completely different vehicle from 20 or 30 years ago, or you accept that the practice has been normalized by almost every single major manufacturer, and you continue with your day. Very rarely does the simple act of raising awareness contribute to the death of a problem, but for politics, at least hopefully, awareness of what's happening behind the scenes directly impacts the ability for people involved to improve it. Just to reiterate this point, because I think it's very important, I will not be discussing any particular ideology. This is not us versus them group dynamics. It's an examination of everyone involved with the online world of political discourse. All right? This is not something to freak out about. It should be very enlightening, I hope. Let's get to it. Puzzle piece number 1 is a simple demonstration of the schism between political belief and economic reality. According to polling data from YouGov, this right here is a visual demonstration of political party voters in the United States and how they believe the economy is currently performing. Setting aside the very obvious discrepancy as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, what we see, very clearly demonstrated here, is that when the party controlling the White House shifts, so does the average interpretation of how the economy is performing. From November of 2020 through January of 2021, party control of the White House flips, obviously, and during that exact same 3-month period, voters belonging to those parties suddenly shift completely to the opposite side of the spectrum on whether or not the economy is getting worse or better. This monumental change has absolutely zero basis in reality. If you look at average inflation, there's no correlation whatsoever. Growth of GDP, same thing. Even the unemployment rate, once again, outside the obvious black swan event of the COVID pandemic, even the unemployment rate has absolutely zero correlating fluctuations that could ever justify half the country suddenly believing that the economy is getting worse, while the other half, who previously believed the same thing, spontaneously believe it's getting better. Fundamentally, it's a very simple concept. When my people are in control, things must be getting better, but when your people are in control, they must be getting worse. Sadly, it's a very common human perspective, it seems, but it's also laughably wrong, because economies at scale simply do not work that way, let alone at that speed during a 6-month window before and immediately after the change occurs. Point being, as per example number 1, political party voters are often completely disconnected from reality, believing that things are magically getting better or worse simply as a function of whether or not their party has control of the White House. Puzzle piece number 2 is where it starts getting a whole lot more interesting, because it begins to explain why and how that disconnection occurs. What if I said that ideological loyalty directly impairs your ability to understand basic reason? We all know that most people arguing about politics online feel like thick-headed morons, at least if you ask the people that disagree with them. But what if I said it's actually being studied scientifically? Before going further, today's video is brought to you by the longest-running individual sponsor of the channel, and that is Surfshark. Surfshark is a VPN, virtual private network, and especially considering the modern political climate of aggressive internet age verification laws, which a lot of platforms and jurisdictions are embracing right now, VPNs are especially valuable at the moment and have a number of different uses, such as helping prevent certain types of phishing attacks, DNS tunneling, or DDoS attacks in particular, while also helping to mitigate the data tracking and harvesting practices by all sorts of big tech companies. If you care more about entertainment, which is fine, Surfshark unlocks additional content on streaming websites, lots of them, by changing your geographic region, opening up additional options in your video library as a result of licensing agreements. Surfshark also gets around regional censorship, websites being blocked in your region by the government, if you know what I mean. Happens more and more at the moment. And it helps protect your IP address with encryption, modification, etc. People often have concerns over privacy when it comes to VPNs, so just to make sure that I mention it, Surfshark does not keep logs, third-party verified with a whole public report in tandem, which is one of the critical policies that a VPN needs to have. Also, they maintain what's called a warrant canary. Doesn't mean much to most people, but if you care about it, they have it. If you click the link down below, surfshark.com/echelon, and use the code echelon at checkout, you can get 4 extra months completely for free with a special pricing offer. Again, link down below, surfshark.com/echelon, coupon code echelon at checkout for an extra 4 months of the service for free. Big thank you to Surfshark for sponsoring the channel. Okay, back to it. This is a Swedish research paper right here titled, quote, Motivated Formal Reasoning, Ideological Belief Bias in Syllogistic Reasoning Across Diverse Political Issues, end quote. And for anyone who isn't aware, a syllogism is the process where you draw some kind of third conclusion out of 2 related propositions. Example 1, all snakes are reptiles, combines with 2, all reptiles are cold-blooded, leading to, logically 3, all snakes are cold-blooded. Make sense? Well, it turns out when studying syllogistic reasoning skills for political issues, according to this research from Routledge, a subdivision of the academic publishing company Taylor and Francis, we find that, quote, participants correctly evaluated more syllogisms when the correct response was congruent with their ideology, particularly on hot-button issues, asylum to refugees, climate change, gender-neutral education, and school marketization, end quote. However, more is actually a very noticeable difference in this case. Simply put, blind adherence to a political ideology impairs one's ability to think rationally. Obviously, I'm going to link all of these different studies down below, and yes, they come from a wide range of institutions, but let's move on to a third example published in Nature pertaining to 8 different countries this time, titled, quote, Dark Personalities in the Digital Arena, How Psychopathy and Narcissism Shape Online Political Participation, end quote. This one's a little bit more tricky and it's rather long, but it can be very well summarized by, quote, individuals high in psychopathy and FOMO are consistently more likely to engage in online political activity, end quote. And further down, quote again, higher cognitive ability is uniformly associated with lower levels of online political participation, end quote. It's actually extremely well pronounced, by the way. People with low cognitive ability, as in reasoning, learning, attention, etc., and high rates of psychopathy, which means antisocial behavior, lack of empathy, manipulation, impulsivity, and aggression even. People with low cognitive ability and high psychopathy are far, not slightly, far more likely to be participating in online politics, and those with relatively high cognition are less so. Hopefully it's beginning to make sense right now why it always feels like you're consistently arguing with idiots when it comes to online politics, because you are. But it gets even better, because our 4th and final example, our 3rd trifecta research paper rather, is this one from Yale University scientist Dan M. Kahan. Quote, Motivated Numeracy and Enlightened Self-Government. Not exactly the most descriptive title, I would say, but when you drill down on what the study contains, it very much is enlightening. The focus of the research is a very simple numerical problem. 1,111 participants were questioned about their mathematical reasoning abilities and their political views, after which they were asked to interpret the results of a fictional scientific study, which looked like this right here. Quickly summarized for people that are only listening to the video and not watching, it's a table of data showing the results of a skin cream being used to treat a rash. When taking the cream, 223 participants got better, while 75 got worse, but with the control group who didn't use the cream, 107 got better, while just 21 got worse. The simple explanation is percentages. The mathematically correct answer is that the skin cream does not work, because the proportion of those that got better versus those that got worse is actually superior in the control group. Absolute numbers wise, it looks like the skincare works, but in reality it doesn't. You would be much better off simply not using the cream and waiting to get better without it. Here's the kicker, which I find to be absolutely insane. When they shifted the question, instead of using a benign concept like skin cream, and layered in high-tension, controversial, divisive political topics, participants began exhibiting dramatically reduced ability to use basic mathematics. When the premise was altered, now referring to concealed carry handguns and crime, they found that even those with superior mathematics skill began giving incorrect answers with overwhelming favoritism towards answers that reinforced their own existing political beliefs. Participants who were already pro-gun control, as per existing ideology, answered almost perfectly, that is, when the answer reinforced their idea that a concealed carry ban would lower crime, yet when the opposite was true, when the objectively correct answer from the table was that crime would go up after a ban, as per the numbers, they much more frequently got it wrong. Inversely, those favoring Second Amendment protections and the right to carry firearms were far more consistently correct when the answer favored the idea of crime rising after a ban, yet they were wrong to a near ridiculous proportion when the numbers concluded that a ban lowered crime. Looking at the data in context, it's a perfect demonstration of how fanatical ideology and relentless commitment to a certain perspective of controversial political topics makes people significantly worse when it comes to critical thinking, basic reason, and even mathematics in this case. We see what we want to see, even when the facts of the matter openly contradict our politics. Bringing it full circle now, it feels like you're arguing with the lowest common denominator of humanity when you engage in the world of online politics, because you are, except you might be one of them too. Politics is capable of warping our cognitive abilities in a way that we don't even perceive. And if you factor in the reality that online political discourse is highly populated with those that already have low cognitive ability and high psychopathy, because that demographic is more attracted to the activity in the first place, what you have is a perfect incubation space for the disease of politics. However, some good news, some very good news in my opinion, is that unlike the world of dystopian technology or governmental overreach, awareness, big air quotes, awareness, actually does help immediately solve the problem here. Using myself as an example on this one, I have routinely engaged in the world of online politics to the detriment of my own mental health at times. But having done all this research for myself, I will most likely always have a little voice in the back of my mind, making it much more difficult for me to continue doing so. I will now always be questioning whether or not I am that lowest common denominator, because I know how warped and twisted perceptions can be. And I'll be much more apprehensive of spending my time arguing with people when I know that to do so makes me, myself, the low cognition, high psychopathy moron. My goal in making this video, all of this is to say, is that I hope I won't be the only one. And for anyone who made it this far, all the way to the end, I probably won't be, because you can't unring a bell. Once you know something, you know it. That's it. Hopefully this video makes a difference in a world of hypercharged online political disagreements where people don't even think through a full sentence to the end. But even if not, I gave it a shot. If you want to support the channel, check out the links down below. The video sponsor, of course, Surfshark, locals in Patreon, monthly memberships, merch, social media, etc., etc. But I'll cut it there and stop rambling. As always, thank you all for watching, question everything, and have a nice night.